morning and a very warm welcome to Bravo 22 live programme and the YouTube channel, all made possible by the Royal British Legion and the Drive Project. We offer a programme of creativity through well-being and recovery through creative arts. We welcome all serving personnel, former serving personnel, wounded, injured and sick military personnel and families of all of the above. We strive to provide new skills, build self-esteem and your confidence. My name is Larraine Smith and I'm a military wife for 36 years. I've been a company member now for almost 6 years and the company has really helped me through some really dark times, and it can help you too. It will give you a focus, something to get out of bed for, and it will give you an end product created by you. I have enjoyed many various projects, including 2 plays. One of them, Boots at the Door, was performed here in Plymouth, where I live, at the Theatre Royal. The second play, Unspoken, was meant to be a one-off performance in Newcastle Theatre Royal, and we were actually picked up and we went on tour from that play. And the tour included the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and the House of Commons. So there's so many opportunities that you can be involved with. I've also taken part in creative writing, theatrical skills, improvisation, storytelling, lino cut printing, puppetry, portraits from packaging, poetry, watercolour painting, and life drawing. So please tell all your military family and friends about us, and please subscribe to the channel and like and share us on Facebook. And that's really important that you do that. And please feel free to ask any questions throughout the session today. And there's lots more to come over the next few weeks. Now, without further ado, I'd like you to introduce you to our creator today, and we are speaking to Adam Wimpenny, who is a film and television director with over 20 years of experience making flagship shows for many of the main broadcasters. Adam has directed a BAFTA-winning series and worked in a broad range of genres, including comedy, drama, documentary and entertainment. So, welcome, Adam. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we're really looking forward to hearing all about what a film and television director actually does do.
Good morning, Larraine. Nice to join you all. Yes, I thought it'd be great to talk to you guys today about some of the work I do, because as you've nicely set up in your introduction, I've been directing for a long time. I've had a lot of experiences over the years. And I thought today it would be a good opportunity to talk about some of my experiences working in television and how I got into it and how a director works day to day on a set and what my job actually involves, but also talk about a recent drama I did for Sky that we shot in a film studio overseas. And it was a great experience because we got to play in a big movie set and build a set in a studio, which involved some in-camera trickery to create a bit of an optical illusion. So I thought it'd be good to talk about those things.
Amazing. Adam, what actually made you want to be a director in the first instance?
For me, I guess when I grew up in Yorkshire, and we ended up going to a cinema when I was about 6 years old. And I went to see E.T. And it was like the most amazing experience for me because I think the combination of the cinematography, the John Williams score, storytelling, I'd never really ever seen anything like that before. And it had such a sort of a powerful emotional impact on me that I think I've been chasing that sort of experience ever since. So I thought, right, that's something I would love to do. And then it followed on that going through my teens, I was always making short films and spent a lot of time doing it really as a hobby, because again, living in Yorkshire, I grew up in a big farmhouse. There was lots of space to make film projects. I didn't have a lot of other things nearby, so I used to make films with local kids. Quite often my long-suffering sister ended up becoming like the victim in all my films because I was quite into special effects, makeup and things like that. But anyway, I ended up going to film school in London, and then from there, once I graduated, quite early on, I was lucky enough to get into directing. So I've been directing TV shows quite a long time, and I thought maybe it might be good to just kind of play a clip with some of the drama and film work I've been doing over the years.
Yeah, what shows have you worked on, Adam?
A real combination of things. Over the years, I've done, as I say, a lot of comedy. So I've worked with people like Alan Carr, Jonathan Ross, Davina McCall, John Bishop, Jack Whitehall. I've also done a lot of sort of studio entertainment shows. So things like the Anson Deck Saturday Night Takeaway is a show I used to direct. I used to do a lot of stuff with Darren Brown. I did a show called The Revolution Will Be Televised, which won a BAFTA for the best comedy a few years back. And then I did a show called The Real Hustle as well, which was a bit of a hidden camera show. So it's been a real broad mix of things. And as I say, my first love has always been film and drama. So in more recent years, I've been focusing more on my film work and drama side of things. So it may be good to just, if we could play a quick clip, I've got something which will show some of the work I've done, and then we can discuss my work on a day-to-day basis.
Fabulous. Amazing, Adam. So what is a director, and what does a director actually do to make all of this marry?
That is a good question, Larraine. I think it's one of those jobs where I feel like I'm still learning all the time from project to project. But I think if I was to try and describe what a director really does, I think that I would say I feel like I'm almost like a creative filter for the project. So quite often when you're doing a larger film project or a big drama, you work with a great big team of people. You're working with composers, you're working with production designers, costume designers, so many different people. But I think that it really starts with having a vision for the project. So what I try and do is I'll look at the script, I'll break it down, try and come up with the most creative way of telling the story, and then try and come up with a bit of a vision for it. So I think every director has their own sort of tastes and sensibilities. You may see one film where it's very colorful, it's very fast paced, all the camera work's very loose and shaky. You might see another director where it's quite a slow paced film and it's maybe long camera shots, it's very emotional, maybe the emphasis is on performance. And I think different directors bring that sensibility to the project they're making. So they always end up being a filter, and the person who is on set really guiding the day-to-day creative aspects of the shoot. So I will work with the actors. I spend a long time getting them in to understand the characters that they're playing, and you are there trying to get the best performances out of them on the day. I'm working with the camera team, and that's a very different aspect because that is a very technical thing to do. And you work with the director of photography to shoot the film and tell the story in the most visually interesting way possible. Because I think, again, with directing, it's very much about a sort of having a point of view. So choosing where the camera goes in every moment really is taking that audience on the journey, because you're basically deciding what the audience's eyes and ears are going to see. So it's a very interesting job to do, and I feel lucky to be doing it because, again, you get to work with a lot of different people on the project. But again, if there's any questions, I'd love to hear from people out there if they have any questions about the job, and I can expand on that. We could perhaps talk a bit more about it towards the end, right?
Sally has asked if you've ever been starstruck.
Do you know what? Yes, I have. I think the first time you start working with sorry, I just had a phone call come through. First time I start working in television, when I used to do the Anton Deck series, every week they would have big Hollywood superstars come through the door, where I was thrown in to talk to them and direct them for the sketches we were doing. And I met Samuel L. Jackson. That was quite intimidating because I was a huge fan of Pulp Fiction, and I had to go to the Savoy Hotel to do a comedy sketch with him. And that was pretty amazing. But I've got to the point now where I try and tell myself that these are just normal people and they're doing a job, and everyone tries to go in on a professional level. And yeah, I try, and if I am starstruck, I try and keep it in.
So what is the actual process then of taking the script that's been written for the film and turning it into an amazing film?
Well, do you know what? For me, it starts with storyboarding. It's something I've always done. I know a lot of directors don't do this, but I like to try and go through the script and really break it down. So I always do my own comic book version of the film first, where I do my own little doodles. I'll sit there for hours and hours doing drawings and trying to work out how I'm going to tell the story. And for me, sometimes when I get onto the set, I might never even look at the storyboards, but I think just the process of having gone through it mentally means I've got the whole film in my head. And again, when you're standing there on the set, what's funny, and maybe people don't know this, is that everything is shot out of order. I think some people assume that maybe you start in the first scene of the film and you work sequentially through it, but you never have the luxury of doing that, because quite often you're working around actors' availability, or you're working around the availability of locations. So you're shooting stuff out of order. So I'm always trying to work out how to tell the story out of sync, and those storyboards can be very helpful in having a game plan. You can go through ticking off all the shots as you go. And casting's a big part of it, trying to make sure that you've got the right cast for it, because so much of it is about the chemistry of how actors get on together on screen. So you go through quite a laborious, long process of getting actors to sometimes play against each other and just make sure that the chemistry works. There's a lot of moving parts to every production, I find.
Storyboards is something that a lot of us at Bravo 22 will know something about, those in particular that have done theatrical skills and been part in plays, because we've often worked with storyboards, so we would be totally on board with you there. What is it like, Adam, seeing your film go into the cinema? How does that make you feel?
Well, that is interesting, because I've been lucky enough to see things from both sides. I've had the TV experience and the film experience, and it's funny because actually with television you end up having a pretty huge audience sometimes seeing your TV shows. I think some of the Saturday night entertainment shows I used to do would be seen by over 10 million people, but you don't ever it doesn't really ever affect you because you're not aware of that audience. You never see them. But the first time I made a feature film and then took it to a cinema, that was a very intense experience because, I mean, we were very fortunate. We got our film into the London Film Festival and we did a Saturday night premiere in Leicester Square, which was great fun. You did the whole red carpet bit, but suddenly walking into a room and seeing an audience in a cinema sitting there waiting to watch your film was really quite intimidating, because the best way I can describe it is it's a bit like you spent 2 years doing your homework and then suddenly there's 500 people who are about to judge it for 2 hours and you are sitting there at the back of the room watching it go out for the first time. So it's a mixture of like absolute terror and you know, it being very rewarding at the same time, because when those moments in the film do work and they get the desired effect and you see an audience react, maybe they laugh or they, you know, they jump at the right moment if there's a scare or something like that, that's it feels like you've done your job right and you get that immediate reaction from the audience.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a very proud moment for you too. Adam, we've got quite a few questions coming in. Who were your influences as any film directors, and are there any film directors that you really admire? And that's from Kate.
Yes, that's a good question. There's quite a few filmmakers that I admire. I'd say that every director always has their kind of go-to films and directors that they always look towards for inspiration. But my starting place has always been Spielberg. My favorite film is Jaws. I mean, I think it's just a wonderful, perfect film because it's about a family man, you know, going up against nature and battling the odds with these three amazing characters out at sea. It's a very primal movie, but it's something I always enjoy, and I think the scores are fantastic. I always love David Fincher. I think David Fincher is an amazing technical filmmaker. I don't think there's anybody technically out there that's better than him, because he really knows how to get an amazing performance and work with the camera. And Christopher Nolan also is an amazing filmmaker. He's got a real style and a brand that I think is very unique. You know, he does. I think he's very good at doing the thinking person's blockbuster, which is quite a rare thing these days. So, but going from that, I thought it might be interesting to maybe talk about a project I did recently, because at the beginning of the chat we talked about. I was talking about a project I did for Sky.
Yeah.
And Sky have a very interesting strand that they do called Urban Myths, and it's been like an Emmy-nominated series where it's all about stories that may or may not have happened to famous people. And they've done some brilliant shows over the years. They've done them about Mick Jagger and David Bowie and just you name it, they've covered it. But anyway, we got a commission to make a show about Madonna, who dated Jean-Michel Basquiat, who was a famous artist who back in 1983 was living in New York, and he started dating Madonna when she was a cloakroom girl, and she was just on the up. She'd recorded a few music demos. She was doing bits of part-time modeling, but she hadn't made a name for herself. And we did a drama about them both meeting and this kind of like very tempestuous relationship that they had. So I worked with a lady called Sarah Soleimani, who is a brilliant writer. Who's done a lot of shows over here in the UK, and she came up with this great idea of setting it on a New York subway carriage late at night, when all the characters have left the nightclub and they're traveling home on the underground in the subway. And as you can imagine, back then in the 1980s, it was quite a dangerous place. They had all sorts of problems on the subway. It wasn't the sort of place you'd really want to be using late at night unless you really needed to travel. But we were thinking, well, how do we make this project in London? Because we needed New York back streets. We wanted to do something that looked like Manhattan, and we also needed to build a train set. So we ended up going to a place in Bulgaria called New Bojana Studios, which is an amazing film studio, which we were aware had this New York backlot. So we went out there, we made this drama, and I'd like to talk about some of the production things that we did on the show. But I've got a little 3-minute clip which I'd like to play in, and just to set us up, the idea is that Madonna has just come out of a nightclub with Basquiat, and she's just had a fight with a girl on the nightclub dance floor because she didn't realize that Basquiat had another girlfriend at the time. This is something that actually happened, but they had a big cat fight at the dance floor, and our story starts with them leaving and getting ready to go on the the subway train. So I'll just play that clip in now, please.
Okay.
Am I bleeding? Motherfucker.
Hey, you're okay. Just a little wet.
She came out of nowhere.
I didn't see. I went to get drinks, and when he turned around, you're fighting like cats.
How tall was she? 5 foot? Was she even 5 foot?
Barely 5 foot.
I got jumped by a freaking pixie, freaking devil elf. Great.
You gave as good as you got.
You see? Freaking nails. Really tore my eyes out. Holy shit.
Like a pair of cats squawking over a can of tuna in the trash.
And what were you in this scenario? The tuna or the trash?
Stand clear, please. Release the doors of the train.
No, it's Basquiat.
Oh, it's like French or something. Basquiat.
Yeah, Basquiat.
It is. Yeah, no.
Ask me if it's him.
Hey. Are you him?
You are him, aren't you?
Look, man, we're big fans. Like, big fans. Hey!
Hey! We love you!
She's just trying to say she loves you.
Hey!
Screw you, man. Think you're better than us?
What a jerk. You can't be serious.
What?
You suck at being famous, man.
What do you know about being famous?
I know I wouldn't have behaved like that, that's for sure.
Adam, that's amazing. And who would have known you weren't in New York there? So what was it like working with that New York set? And how did you make a static train set appear as though it was moving?
Well, Larraine, it was an amazing experience for me because I generally work on location. I think when I'm shooting in the UK, we'll go out to real locations and that's where we end up filming. But it's always very difficult to do that because if you have to imagine, there's always like 100 people in terms of crew, and you need catering wagons, you need like an entire production village. It's like the circus coming to town when you do a project. and so going to a studio was a real novelty for me because suddenly you're all there under one roof. You have all these amazing backlot streets, which are all built, and you can pretty much do whatever you like with them. So for me, that was amazing because actually with the New York set, what happened was that they had constructed a series of streets, which looks like Lower Manhattan, where you can do pretty much anything you like with it. You can put the cars where you want, all the period cars. We could do a wet down where what quite often, if you're doing a night shoot, you squirt the streets with water to get all these lovely reflections. So you could just get out the fire hose and squirt everything down. We had a great big crane, like a 30-foot long crane that you could just put in the middle of the street. So you can do these crane shots that, again, if you're trying to shoot, say, in central London, it becomes very difficult to do unless you have a lot of time and money. So that was great for me. But then the train set, that was an interesting one because we thought, okay, our story, it takes place on a train carriage. And if you watch the rest of the film, what happens is they keep progressing deeper and deeper through the trains. They keep going through about 4 or 5 different carriages in the story. So we thought, well, how do we do this? So what happened was we constructed a train set in the studio. So we had a great big sound stage, and we created one main carriage, and then we had 2 stubby bits either end. So it looked like the start of a train carriage either side. And what we started doing was we started employing quite old school cinema techniques where everything was done in camera. It was a bit of an illusion, a bit of smoke and mirrors to make it look like it was moving. So one of the first tricks we did was we placed mirrors at either end of the carriage so that as the characters were standing there talking, the characters just lightly rotate. And what would happen is it would give the sense that you were looking through a series of train carriages and the carriages were moving as it went through the tunnels. And then the other thing we wanted to do was give the sense of movement as it pulled in and out of the different stations. Because in a story, the characters get on and off at various stations on the underground. So, so what we did was we used something called rear projection, which is a very old school cinema technique, which if you go back to the 1950s, they used to do it all the time because pretty much everything was always shot in a studio. So the old Hitchcock films, if you'd ever see a couple of people driving in a car, it was quite easy to spot, but you'd see them in a car and then there'd be a rear projection of the traffic of the street behind them. So what we did was we got somebody to film shots out of a window of a New York train going through the stations. And then we put cinema screens down the length of the carriage with a projector behind it so that we could time it so that if it looked like it was coming into a station, we could play in those clips and it gave a sense of movement. And at the same time, we put these quite sophisticated LED lights on great big I don't know quite what you call them, but almost like lighting rigs that you could hang above the train. And what you could do is you could program the lights so that you could get the sense of acceleration. So the lights would start moving down the side of the carriage using these LEDs, which were all programmable on the computer, and it would give the sense that the carriage was moving. But one thing that we wanted to do was also give the idea that the train was coming in and out of the station. And we're thinking, well, how do we achieve something like that, given that the train is completely static? So we thought, well, if we can't move the train, maybe we could move the actors. So what I want to do is just play in a little clip which shows a moment where we had Madonna leaving on the train, pulling away from the platform, Basquiat on the platform, watching the train leave. And I just want to show how we achieved the shot.
Okay.
Давай. Пак. Закъсняваш, Дани. Three, two, one, go!
So Larraine, so you can see from that video clip what we tried to do, which was we had our actor sat on a dolly, and then to get the impression that the train was moving away back into the tunnel, what we did was, given that we couldn't move the train, we moved the actor. So we put him on a dolly, we tracked the actor back, and then it gave us the impression that given that we were shooting over his shoulder, the train was pulling away. And it was very simple stuff, really. So again, smoke and mirrors, I call it, that sort of a idea that just by doing little tricks in camera with smoke machines and simple lighting effects can be like a clever workaround for pulling off shots like that. But
very clever, very inventive, very clever, and yeah, lots of camera trickery. But yes, the secret's out of the bag now. Adam, we need to go to some questions now because we're running out of time. So we have a question here from Luke. Where's it disappeared to? I had a question here from Luke. Oh, here we go. What is your view on disability equality in show business? And do you have any advice for people with disabilities wanting to get into the game? And that's from Luke.
Well, do you know what? I think that's a very interesting question. And I think that is something that the industry is trying to address a lot at the moment. I think in the last couple of years, there has been a huge amount of conversation about it. I think the industry knows it can do better. I think there's been a lot of open conversations saying that they need to be trying harder to give people who are disadvantaged or maybe have a disability, give them more opportunities. So I'm seeing TV channels like Sky, they have a lot of incentives and programs set up now where they're trying to help people. I think this will be an ongoing conversation for the next couple of years. As you can see, things like the BAFTAs and Oscars are addressing the fact that there's been a lot of inequality, perhaps. So I'd say now going forward is a great time to pursue your ambitions, because I think the door is open. I think people are wanting to help, and there are the wheels have been put in motion to try and give people more opportunities.
That's a great answer. Thank you so much for that, Adam. One last question. We need to wrap up. Is from Ian Rudge, and Ian asks, how hard is it to cut scenes and telling actors that their scene is cut? That's not nice. Some of us have experienced that.
Yes. No, I've been there as well before. It's an interesting one. I mean, cutting for me, editing is a great part of the process, because really, when you get into the edit room, you're almost making the film for a second time. You go onto set and you shoot all the material, but then you get into the edit suite and you have this wealth of material, and you have a script to work to. You think you've got a pretty good idea of how it will all fit together, but there's always surprises along the way. Sometimes things don't work the way you're expecting, or you realize that sometimes things just need tightening up, so you do have to lose things. And unfortunately, I had a friend who I brought in to work on a project that I did recently for ITV, where it was a drama where he came in and ended up playing a police officer doing an interview in a scene, and the executives I was working with wanted to keep cutting it down. It got cut, and then finally, when the show went out, I sent him a text saying, I'm so sorry, but I think you'll find that your scene's been reduced a bit. I probably wasn't quite as honest with him as I should have been. And he sent me a text back afterwards going, being cut down a bit. I just saw the back of my head. This poor guy has been completely removed from the scene. I think we saw the back of his head and his shoulder. Not quite what he probably signed up for.
Oh.
But sadly, these things do happen. But
things have been very much what we signed up for this morning, Adam. It's been amazing having you with us. We wish you every success with your next feature film. Thank you for giving us such a fabulous insight into what a film and television director actually does do. It's really was very interesting. It's great to work with you, and I hope there's another opportunity at a later stage. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, Larraine. Thank you very much, and nice to join you all this morning.
Nice to have you. Take care, Adam.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody, also for joining us today, and for all of your comments and questions that have been coming in. I know we didn't get time to answer all of the questions, but I know that if once you do your feedback form, I know Alice or Sue will answer any questions that they can help with in there. So please do, in the video description below, there's some great resources to help you find out more about today's topic. Please do fill in your feedback form, which will help make Bravo 22 Live bigger and better. And the next session on the YouTube channel is this Thursday, 11 a.m, Thursday the 25th, with Al Johnson as the creative. Al is director of art, and you don't want to miss anything that Al does. And Ian Rudge will be presenting, my friend Ian, and they will together be uncovering the secrets of the John Constable's The Haywain. So this is in the masterpieces this is the second part of the masterpieces that Al is working with. So for your time today, I thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in. Please do stay safe. Don't forget to like and share us. Subscribe to us. It is free. It is a gift. You'd be a fool not to take us up on it. Please do subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Stay safe. Keep well. Goodbye.